Discover the incredible moment when a little girl's touching request transformed a grumpy CEO's life forever. John Carver stood stoically in his corner office, the Chicago skyline sprawling beneath him like an empire he had painstakingly built. His reflection stared back, hardened and exhausted, eyes weighted by ambition and the endless grind of corporate life. He began to feel the familiar pulse of dissatisfaction writhing in his chest, a feeling he had kept at bay for years. Success had been his relentless pursuit, but the cost had drained the warmth from his life, leaving a chill that was becoming unbearable. As he readied himself for yet another community responsibility event, he felt like a prisoner in a life of his own making, handcuffed by profit margins and board meetings. The elementary school gym buzzed with laughter, pulsing energy that was both foreign and unsettling to him. Children zoomed past, their faces bright and carefree, starkly contrasting with his sterile, lifeless world. He had been dragged here reluctantly, the event a mere obligation to silence critics of the firm's corporate image. Yet, amidst the chaos, a small figure caught his attention. Mia, a bright-eyed girl with an infectious smile, was bubbling over with curiosity. "Can you share your secret to being successful?" she asked earnestly. He felt the initial constriction in his throat, and irritated scoff almost escaped. Who was this child to question his life choices? But her innocence disarmed him, awakening a flicker of nostalgia he had buried deep. He remembered the dreams of his youth, the idealism that had once driven him. The laughter and warmth of connection that it had built now replaced by cold transactions and shallow praise. Could he dare open that door again? As they spoke, John found himself confiding pieces of wisdom he had long forgotten. Her eyes sparkled with each piece of advice, igniting something deep within him, yet simultaneously filling him with dread. What was he becoming? This girl had unearthed memories of sacrifice and abandoned relationships. Each anecdote he shared left him feeling raw, balancing on the edge of a moral precipice that threatened to unveil deeper truths he had whitewashed for years. John's mind raced as he considered the grim realities surrounding Mia's situation. Just days ago, news of severe funding cuts reached him, a decision that weighed heavy on his conscience. The fate of the school hung precariously, teetering between financial ruin and opportunity for countless children like Mia. Would he still prioritize ambitions born from a corporate identity anchored in profit? The thought tightened his chest, suffocating and relentless. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The weight of his choice loomed heavier by the moment. He could feel a shiver of anguish ripple through him. The staggering guilt of inaction clashed brutally with the ingrained instinct to protect his hard-earned empire. Each word spoken between him and Mia morphed from simple exchanges into a fractal of expectations. Could he transform into the mentor he never had? The question sparked turmoil, igniting determination, yet deepening a fear of failure. As he stood before the mirror later that night, the reflection stared back with consequences written all over it. His pulse quickened, beads of sweat trickling down the back of his neck. Gritting his teeth, John faced the crux of his life, a crossroads riddled with memories of his past and the future he now envisioned. He had a choice: the comfort of securities or the leap into uncertainty for a little girl's dreams. Would he have the courage to confront his legacy and evolve into something greater than self-serving success? The stakes were higher than ever, and the tension coiled tightly within him, begging for resolution, but leaving only questions at the edges of his mind. The morning sun sliced through the blinds of John's office, brushing over documents and awards that loomed like ghosts of past triumphs, prizes for deals made, accolades for successes chased. But today, they felt different, more like reminders of the void that lay beneath their glossy surfaces. He grabbed his coffee, the rich aroma grounding him momentarily, but as he sipped, the bitterness echoed the complexities flooding his mind. Last night lingered, hovering over him with the weight of a decision yet to be made. Mia's glowing gaze, filled with pure expectation, replayed in his thoughts. Could he step away from the hard shell of the CEO and dive into the unfinished narrative of his own potential? The stakes had shifted. Now it was about contributing rather than collecting. He had to act. Tension coiled tight in his gut, an urgent reminder that action was needed. Driven by an impulse he hadn't felt in years, John fired off an email to his leadership team, a surprise meeting called for later that afternoon. The meeting would cover the budget cuts he had been avoiding, but not the cuts they all anticipated. Instead, he sought to lay a plan for reinvestment in public education, a shortened agenda, but a bold move that could either seal his fate as the champion of the oppressed or dig him deeper into corporate disdain. As he prepared, doubt clawed at him, a familiar companion. What if they laughed at him? What if they considered him soft? He gritted his teeth, pushing the thoughts aside. This was a moment for something larger than himself. He needed to transcend the persona he had meticulously crafted, embracing the vulnerability that came with truly caring for someone other than himself. The conference room buzzed, anticipation mingled with skepticism as senior executives took their seats, men and women adorned in tailored suits and expertise. He paced the room, then took a deep breath, ready to unveil his intentions from the launchpad of his resolve. "Thank you for coming on short notice," John began, the tremor in his voice surprising even him. "I know we've been discussing cost-cutting measures to ensure our continued profitability, but I'd like to propose a different direction." The room cooled, resistance palpable. A silence rang heavy as he continued, each word a battleground. "The public school we've been hearing about in the news, the one suffering from cuts? I want us to partner with them. Invest in programs that benefit children like Mia, not only through funding but mentorship opportunities. These kids are our future." He felt electricity ignite in the air, a mixture of incredulity and simmering anger. Whispers cascaded through his audience. Was he really suggesting they divert resources? His heart raced, emboldened by a burgeoning belief in his cause, but quaking under the scrutiny of their gazes. "Are you suggesting we throw money at the problem, John? That's not what our shareholders want," one executive challenged, arms crossed defiantly. The confrontation left him breathless, his drive igniting a conflict raging behind the facade of corporate allegiance. Could he truly face opposition? Each heartbeat throbbed in his ears. No one had ever dared to confront him this way, yet here he was, on the precipice of a personal and professional metamorphosis. "Yes," he responded, the conviction swelling inside him. "But it's not just about the money. It's about investing in dreams. This company can be more than just profitable. We can make a real difference." The tension in the room thickened, visibly shifting. Ideas danced in the air like flames flickering in anticipation of fuel. John felt his resolve crystallize. Maybe he was ready for the transformation after all. Yet, doubt lurked, whispering in the back of his mind. He had ignited the fire, but would it consume him? As the atmosphere crackled, he braced himself for the onslaught of possible betrayal. Betrayal not just in the boardroom, but against the very essence of what had driven him for so long. His past loomed large, but beyond it laid newfound hope. The moment of truth rippled through the air, leaving John poised for revolution as he ventured to determine if he could truly change both the narrative of his life and that of others. Would he be the architect of a brighter future, or would fear claw him back into the shadows? As uncertainty reigned, the room hung on his next words, aware that the impact of this moment would echo far beyond their walls. Would he dare to stand firm, or would this be yet another moment lost to self-preservation? John's heart raced as he faced the skeptics surrounding the long conference table. The tension was palpable, every furrowed brow and crossed arm a testament to their disbelief in his long-shot proposal. He could either retreat into the comfort of old patterns or risk everything he had built for a concept fueled by vulnerability and a desire to make a difference. "Let us think about this strategically," another executive chimed in, with an air of authority that made John's throat constrict. "Our shareholders care about returns, not community outreach. What's in it for us?" Their question cut like a knife, but instead of crumbling under pressure, John summoned a wellspring of calm within. He understood that hidden beneath the layers of corporate obligation lay humanity, something that had been lost in the relentless pursuit of numbers. "Investing in education may not yield immediate profits," John replied, voice steady. But imagine the long-term impact. We can cultivate a generation that values innovation. Our industry thrives on new ideas. Those children could become our future employees, partners, and advocates. As he uttered those words, he realized he was no longer just pitching an idea. He was standing in the space where his own humanity collided with his professional identity, a delicate dance between aspiration and practicality. Yet, even as conviction fueled him, doubt loomed like a specter in the background. What if he was wrong? What if this venture didn't reap any rewards and left his company's financial stability in jeopardy? Would it all be worth sacrificing the career he had painstakingly crafted? Voices continued to rise and intertwine. "You're jeopardizing our reputation, John," another voice protested. John could almost feel their apprehension manifesting in the air, thickening like fog, obscuring clarity and progress. "Forgive me," but John interrupted, a newfound fire igniting in him. "What value does a reputation hold if we're not making the world better? Isn't it time we redefine what success looks like in this industry?" His retorts hung in the air, a challenge met with a haunting silence. Everything he believed began to unravel alongside the anxious breaths filling the room. A distant memory surfaced. Leaving his office one night, he had glimpsed a child selling lemonade for coins. Instead of harshly judging that child, he felt an instinctual pull to help, connected to something greater than financial gain. That he moved forward, unwilling to back down. We're at a transitional point in our society. People are looking for authenticity and responsibility from businesses. Let us dare to be leaders who show that it's about more than profit margins. This can be our legacy. The words spilled out, and with them came a realization. He was not only speaking to the executives in the room, but also to himself. The heaviness that had blanketed his career marked by deals, profits, and climbing hierarchies was a facade. He craved a deeper significance, a purpose spun from threads of real human connection. Near the end of the table, Sarah, one of the quieter executives, leaned forward, her expression pensive. "I see your point, John," she said cautiously. "But could we explore the practicality? How can we engage without sacrificing our bottom line?" The shift was subtle but palpable. Doubt began to take on a different form, one that signified challenge instead of opposition. John felt the tide turning, an opportunity unfurling like a blooming flower. "We can create partnerships to build mentorship programs and offer internships," he countered, emotions ebbing into tangible concepts. "This is about investing time and expertise, not solely money. We can align our mission with tangible outcomes that resonate with both the public and our stakeholders." As discussions deepened, John forged ahead, articulating more plans and ideas, the initial tension gradually dissolving into a productive dialogue. Yet, even as hope flickered, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he was entering uncharted waters. With every step further into this new territory, he wondered if it was too late to reverse course should the tides change again. And then, as the conversation swirled around him, a small voice echoed in the back of his mind, a resonating plea from Mia. What if she would be watching? What if she would see him not just as a CEO, but as a catalyst for change? The stakes were higher than ever. John stood at the precipice of something monumental, knowing he had finally begun to forge a path that could redefine his legacy. But deep down, a question lingered. Was he prepared to face the consequences if this journey led him into the depths of backlash from those who valued the status quo? As the room buzzed with renewed energy, he could feel the weight of impossibility looming like a storm. Would he transform this moment into a lasting change, or would he retreat into his safer past? The boardroom discussions continued, but John's thoughts began to drift, pulled into the depths of his own internal conflict. As voices fluctuated around him, he saw flashes, potential partnerships, a new vision, a path forward that didn't just reflect numbers, but echoed purpose. Yet, even as excitement rose in his chest, shadows of uncertainty danced in the corners of his mind. Sarah's voice brought him back to reality. "You make compelling points, but we need a structured plan. What are the metrics for success? How do we showcase that this isn't just a PR stunt?" Her words echoed with a weight that pressed against his resolve. He could feel the pressure of the room closing in on him again, like thick smoke. What if they were right? Had he overlooked critical aspects? Could he convince them to share his vision without leaving the company exposed? Metrics, he repeated, searching for a way to ground his ambitious ideas in clear-cut realities. We can track participation numbers in internships, analyze feedback from both the students and our employees involved, and most importantly, assess how these initiatives translate into innovative strategies at our company within the next 5 years. John took a breath and, now feeling more confident, continued, if we can get media coverage that highlights our involvement in the community, the goodwill generated will translate into stronger brand loyalty. In turn, that can lead to increased sales as consumers look to support responsible companies. As he spoke, he noticed a flicker of intrigue on some faces at the table. It was subtle, but tangible. A glimmer that maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to see beyond the spreadsheets and quarterly reports. But he still felt the ghost of doubt looming. Could this be a fleeting moment or the dawn of genuine change? A sudden tap on his shoulder jolted him. It was Mia, manifesting in the depths of his imagination. He could image her wide eyes, innocent and earnest. She was not a mere bystander. She embodied everything he had once wanted to give to his community. What would her question pose? What kind of adults would she see reflected in his actions? John, the enthusiasm is palpable, chimed in another executive, Rick, a known skeptic. But how do we ensure this plan doesn't derail our existing projects? We can't afford to spread ourselves too thin either. The directness of Rick's inquiry hit hard. John sensed the scrutiny closing in. Everything rested on how well he could articulate the bridge between idealism and pragmatism. Rick, he responded, voice vibrating with both resolve and vulnerability. This isn't an either-or proposition. We can recalibrate our existing projects to embrace this initiative without sacrificing our priorities. Just as every dollar isn't accounted for by mere numbers in a quarterly report, neither are our values. A murmur swept through the room, laced with a mix of tension and anticipation. He saw some eyebrows arching, signaling intrigue. This was his moment to shift their perspective, not merely for their sake, but for his own. He had been shaping his identity round arduous climbs and knee-jerk decisions. Now, he had to steer toward authenticity, both professionally and personally. As discussions continued, John became acutely aware of not just the strategic necessity of his proposal, but its emotional weight. Each point raised was like stepping stones on a cautiously contemplated road, leading him to places he had never dared to traverse. But even as he delved deeper into the potential of this collaboration, dread clouded his optimism. What if his passion ignited a backlash from the shareholders? Or worse, what if the failure transformed him into the very thing he sought to escape, a leader more concerned with reputation than genuine contribution? With those thoughts swirling, John felt a shiver. The stakes weren't merely about business outcomes. They were interwoven with his own identity. Would he become the kind of leader he wanted to be, or remain shackled to outdated ideologies? As the conversation began to shift towards actionable insights, John knew he'd have to push harder to solidify his vision. He needed to bind their concerns with proposals, changing the narrative from the perils of risk to the promise of transformation. But was he truly ready to face those who still resisted? The moment he stepped beyond the familiar boundaries of cautious professionalism, was he prepared for the storms of doubt and possibly failure that awaited? With the meeting drawing to a close, his pulse quickened. The echoes of urgency clashed within him, leading him towards a critical realization. It was not merely the change he sought at work, but the transformation of his entire being. Would he embrace it, or slip back into a safer, less impactful existence? The question loomed, and like thunder in the distance, was he prepared to confront those vested interests who might stifle his dreams, ensuring history would repeat itself? As the board meeting concluded, the tension in the room still hung in the air like a thick fog. John gathered his notes, but instead of returning them to their place, he allowed himself a moment to reflect. He knew the stakes were high, and as he glanced around, he saw both curiosity and skepticism etched on the faces of his colleagues. The fleeting glimmers of intrigue hadn't fully dispelled the undercurrent of doubt that remained. Stepping out of the boardroom, John felt the crisp air hit his face, momentarily clearing the haze within his mind. Yet, a nagging sensation gnawed at him. The confrontation with Rick lingered, triggering deep-seated echoes of inadequacy from his past. Had he truly articulated enough to sway the board, or would they revert to the status quo? The pressure to be right weighed heavily on him. "Eres good, huh?" A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Jenna, the head of marketing, someone known for her keen insight and straightforward approach. "Yeah, refreshing," he replied, hoping to mask the turmoil beneath. "Listen," she continued, her brow furrowed with concern. "While you presented a great vision, you need to thoroughly prepare for pushback. They want in-depth projections, not just ideals." Her candor stung. It wasn't new information, yet her words echoed his worst fears. He had prepared metrics, but were they robust enough? In a climate where numbers ruled, could the raw pulse of his vision translate into fiscal responsibility? "Do you think I should tweak the metrics?" John asked, pushing himself to engage even as his apprehension mounted. "I think defining success is crucial. Short-term wins can help build trust for the long-term vision." Jenna's eyes held a flicker of encouragement. "You're onto something with this, but it's your job to make them feel it too." That was it. History had shown him countless times that emotion and business often existed in isolated spheres. But here, the potential merged, presenting him with a new challenge: to frame his aspirations in a way that appealed to both the analytical minds and the emotional beings around him. But he nodded, the wheels in his mind turning rapidly. What if he crafted a narrative that married data with heart? Perhaps it was time to leverage personal storytelling alongside metrics, transforming statistics into relatable experiences. Was there a way to share personal anecdotes that tied back to the company's vision? Determined, John made his way to his office. He sat down and flipped open his laptop, heart racing with the weight of his mission. He started typing, crafting a story about Mia, the little girl at the community center. The innocence of her request for more mentorship opportunities illuminated the reason behind his vision. It was about nurturing futures, not just fulfilling quotas. He poured his thoughts onto the screen. John rekindled the confidence that had dimmed since the meeting. He wouldn't just present numbers. He would infuse life into them. This was about more than business. It was about legacy. With each word, he began to see. He was not merely proposing an initiative. He was advocating for transformative leadership and invitation to innovate not just in strategy, but in culture. The phone interrupted his reverie, a message flashing across the screen. It was Sarah. "Would you be open to a brief follow-up tomorrow? I think there's more to discuss about your proposal." His heart raced anew. This was the opportunity he needed to clarify his vision and address their concerns head-on. But doubt crept in once more. Was he truly prepared for a second round? Or would he falter under scrutiny again, revealing the cracks in his armor? Resolute, John responded quickly, suggesting a meeting time. However, the looming weight of the next day accelerated the uncertainty bubbling within him. What if they pushed back harder? With the possibility of his vision either taking flight or crashing down the line, could he genuinely communicate the heart behind the numbers? Looking out of the window, he took a deep breath. He was standing at a precipice, ready to leap into uncharted waters. Change wasn't simply around the corner, it was here. But was he equipped to navigate that change against the current of skepticism? As the night deepened, John turned back to his laptop, crafting his narrative. He had a promise to fulfill, and whether they embraced it or not, he would stand firm in his resolve. Little did he know, this moment was merely the beginning. A pivotal new chapter was about to unfold, and out there, the real test awaited, a test not just of numbers, but of heart. Would he have the courage to confront the next wave of doubt? The clock ticked, and tomorrow loomed. The morning light seeped through the slits in the blinds, brushing across John's desk as he arrived at the office, still riding the wave of mixed emotions from the previous evening. He inhaled deeply, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air, yet it did little to settle his nerves. This was D-Day. Today would determine whether his vision could withstand the scrutiny it inevitably faced. As he settled into his chair, John pulled up his notes, the weight of them pressing against his palms like a leaden blanket. He felt an urgency pushing him forward, igniting a sense of purpose. Jenna's advice reverberated in his thoughts. He needed to articulate not just what changes were coming, but why they mattered. The compelling story he had begun to draft was unfinished. It buzzed around in his head, a combination of hope, reflection, and stark truth waiting to be voiced. He ran through his presentation in front of the mirror, each word punctuated by the resolve forged overnight. He concentrated on Mia, her wide-eyed enthusiasm, her dreams, what she'd taught him about hope. This was not just data. It was a glimpse into lives transformed. He would tell her story today and draw the connection to their goals, to heart and mind alike. Hesitation crept back in. What if they remained unmoved? Could he balance authenticity without losing sight of the numbers? As the minutes ticked closer to the meeting, John's internal dialogue escalated. He imagined Rick's skeptical brow furrowing, the board's impassive expressions. They would challenge him. They would want to dissect his proposal into pieces. He couldn't let fear paralyze him. He needed confidence, grit, the very qualities he had tried to avoid since starting at this company. John gathered his notes and made his way to the conference room, his heart pounding with every step. The tension in the air was palpable, a waiting storm. The board members shuffled papers, exchanged small talk, but John felt as though he were walking into a coliseum. Each person there would be a judge of his vision, of his worth. Glad everyone could make it, Sarah said, her tone light, but her eyes serious. Let us get started. John, would you like to kick things off? Standing before them, his voice steadied by the reminders of Mia and the narrative he had crafted, he began. He painted a vivid image, recounting Mia's request for mentorship, a young life wanting to flourish. As he spoke, he wove in statistics. Enrollment figures, projected growth balance was key. Sharing how their core values of growth could enhance the lives of many resonated loud as he linked each point to tangible outcomes. Yet as he read their expressions, John noted the shifts. Some heads nodded, but others remained skeptical. Slowly, questions began to rain down. They probed for deeper insights into his projections, the specifics of implementation. It was crunch time. Each inquiry was a tightening vice on him, but he held on to his narrative like a lifebuoy. When Rick challenged him most rigorously, John took a breath to pause and remember the stakes, reminding himself once more who he was fighting for. He spoke clearly, allowing his passion for the project to ignite the room. It's more than just about profit margins, it's about impact. We have a responsibility to foster growth, not just financially, but as leaders within our community. They paused, perhaps surprised by the sincerity of his emotion. A flicker of interest passed through the board, but the battle was still on. Just as the air grew thick with doubt again, he sensed the tide shifting. Sarah leaned forward, her vibrant energy drawing attention. I appreciate that, John. Can we further explore the intangible benefits of this mentorship program? And there it was, the opening he needed. They were engaging, pushing beyond skepticism. This moment felt monumental yet fragile, a delicate dance between acceptance and rejection. As soon as he finished, a strange calm fell over him, yet it was incredibly disquieting. Had he moved them? Would they recognize the deep-rooted vision forged by passion and personal stories? Or were they still anchored in their comfort of numbers alone? He stepped back, allowing himself to process. John's potential for growth had expanded in the pressure cooker of that meeting. This wasn't just about his professional struggle. It was a profound revelation of his ability to inspire through authenticity. But as the meeting closed and questions remained, doubt lingered on the horizon. Had he done enough to shift their perception? Would the heart behind his numbers reverberate beyond the boardroom? He left the table invigorated, yet uneasy. The verdict of that discussion hung in the air like an unanswered question. One thing was certain. As the door swung shut behind him, John realized he was no longer just fighting for a project. He was fighting for his place as a visionary leader. But beyond this pivotal meeting, John's journey had just begun. The next obstacle awaited. Could he truly solidify this newfound confidence into sustainable change? The air hummed with an energy that felt electric yet uncertain as John emerged from the conference room. He breathed through his nose, the crisp scent of coffee filling his lungs again. It was the only familiar thing in a day that felt like a whirlwind. As he walked through the hall, he couldn't shake the apprehension that gripped him. Had he truly made his mark, or had he just danced around the edges of doubt? He turned the corner and spotted Jenna talking to a colleague. She caught his eye and approached, her demeanor calm and encouraging. Hey, how do you think it went? Despite the tremor in his voice, he forced a smile. Better than I expected, but the words caught in his throat. I still don't know if they believe in it. You'll never know if you don't give them something they can latch onto, she replied, her eyes sparkling with conviction. Your passion was evident. That matters. Yet doubt gnawed at him. It wove back into his thoughts, questions spilling like a broken dam. What if his passion fell on deaf ears? What if he was still seen as just another employee without true leadership potential? He excused himself and slipped into a quiet corner of the break room. His hands trembled as he poured a cup of lukewarm coffee. The flicker of the fluorescent bulb overhead mirrored the erratic beats of his heart. He closed his eyes a moment. Visions of Mia and every child like her flooded his mind. They needed his leadership. The drive within him surged. This was about more than just him. It was about a legacy and change he could create. But his thoughts darted toward impending doom, the looming board response. What if Rick and the others wanted a more conservative approach? What if they disregarded Mia's story as irrelevant to their bottom line? Perhaps those statistics would still win, and he'd fade into compliance. The afternoon wore on with lingering uncertainty, each hour slowly dragging as he replayed the meeting. Yet a flicker of determination ignited. Rather than waiting for a response, what if he took proactive steps? He pictured his vision not as a pitch, but as an ongoing dialogue, collaboration instead of confrontation. That he grabbed his laptop and started drafting an email to the board, a follow-up that highlighted the points of discussion. In a moment of clear inspiration, he mapped out a series of proposals that included both statistical data and personal stories. It would be an invitation to continue the narrative he had started, an engagement rather than a closure. As he crafted each line, his confidence grew, bridging passive hope with assertive action. This was how visions strengthened. They evolved as conversations unfolded. Each word he typed was a step toward both ownership of his role and the chance to foster momentum. Hours later, John pressed send, his heart racing. It wasn't a sledgehammer approach. It was a soft push, a gentle nudge toward collaboration. But in his gut, he felt it was the right way to approach his vision, reinforced by the revelations Mia shared and the conversations he hoped would follow. He stepped from his workspace, feeling lighter, bringing his focus back to the office environment. He had put his intention out into the universe, but another challenge loomed. Would Rick respond? Would they see his potential as a leader to help usher in this change? Once he locked eyes with Jenna in the hallway, a sense of clarity momentarily swallowed his anxiety. I sent them a proposal, he stated. Nice. What is next? I guess I wait and ensure I'm ready for when they come back. He felt buoyed, yet the reality of uncertainty tightened like a noose. But as he spoke, the small pauses in the conversation became a mental space for new ideas. A flicker of conviction within ignited. He realized this experience was setting the stage for something greater, not just advancing a project, but solidifying his role as an active leader. In that moment, John felt a spark of hope, mixed with the knowledge that even the smallest step could lead to significant change. The impending weight filled with unanswered questions danced ominously in his mind, but he refused to let it stifle his determination. Yet, deep down he knew, with every small success came the zesty thrill of elevation, but also the lurking fear of what would be asked in return. The time had come to face the overarching question. Was he genuinely prepared to lead, or simply emboldened by this fleeting moment? The evening unfolded like a movie in his mind, and a nagging thought took root. A profound sense of responsibility loomed ahead. The certainty was just out of reach, and with the dawn of tomorrow, John's resolve would be put to the test once again. John woke early the next morning, a flurry of thoughts racing through his mind even before the sun broke through the horizon. Anxiety had seeped into his dreams, leaving him restless. Today was not just another workday. The stakes felt inexplicably high. He had taken a step forward yesterday, but with every action came the weight of impending scrutiny. After completing his morning routine on autopilot, he clutched his cup of coffee like a lifeline. Sitting at the kitchen table, he couldn't shake the mental replay of his email. It felt like a leap into an abyss with no guarantee of safety. Did he truly have what it takes to navigate this professional maze? He closed his eyes again, letting visions of Mia and others like her surface. Their hopes felt intertwined in his mission. Arriving at the office, he prepared for another day of uncertainty. Each moment spent glancing at his inbox felt like peering into a black hole. He tried to immerse himself in other projects, but his thoughts drifted back to the proposal, a tangible reflection of both his aspirations and vulnerabilities. The pulse of anticipation clashed sharply with the gnawing dread of rejection or indifference from the board. It was then that Jenna caught up with him in the hallway. "How are you holding up?" she asked, genuine concern lining her voice. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Better, but the weight is killing me. I really want them to see it. You've planted a seed, John. Just remember, even a small seed can grow into something incredible. Her encouragement felt grounding, yet it also amplified the pressure he felt to deliver results. He attempted to absorb her words, pondering the gravity of what lay ahead. The narrative he had initiated with the board was now part of a larger discourse, a story that highlighted the interwoven fates of children like Mia with corporate objectives. He needed to be ready not only to defend his vision, but to engage with counterarguments, transforming resistance into dialogue. Back at his desk, he kept his mind sharp, skimming through potential counterpoints and preparing for persuasive rebuttals to embrace a collaborative frame. Hours ticked by slowly, and the anxiety crescendoed. He caught himself staring blankly at spreadsheets, realizing his mind was elsewhere. So, he decided to take a walk outside for clarity. Fresh air might offer a reprieve from the oppressive weight he felt. During his stroll, John was struck by vivid moments of observation: a father juggling a toddler while pushing a stroller, an elderly couple laughing as they shared coffee, snippets of real human experience unfolded around him, grounding him in the reality of why he was pushing for change. Their stories were more than statistics. They were lives shaped by decisions made in boardrooms like his. As he walked, a realization dawned. Perhaps what he needed was to find a connection within himself, an anchor that reaffirmed his values as he navigated turbulent waters. He had always been data-driven, but now he understood the power of narrative. His pitch had to weave these lives into the business fabric, but he needed that same heartfelt conviction when advocating for them. Feeling revitalized, he returned to his desk and drafted a new outline, this one less rigid, more dynamic. Stories would drive home the mission, empowering him as a spokesperson for these children. He had to embrace authenticity, merging analytical rigor with emotional resonance. Returning to his workstation, he felt a surge of clarity as he outlined how he would incorporate both data and emotional elements in his discussions. No longer just a spectator in the professional arena, he affirmed his voice as a leader. Yet, a nagging sensation whispered in his ear, maybe it wasn't just about the board's response. It was about his growth, his visible evolution as a leader who could fuse the hard and soft elements of decision-making. As the clock inched toward the end of the workday, tension built around the certainty of feedback. But now, he felt better equipped to confront it. He needed to embrace whatever was to come. Then came a ping from his notifications. His heart raced as he glanced at the screen. A response from Rick. Would it be affirmation or rejection? John's breath stilled. He had turned a corner. But was this the moment he dreaded or anticipated? John could hardly breathe as he opened Rick's email. The subject line alone felt heavy with consequence, and the anticipation coiled like a spring within him. With a single click, the message unfurled before his eyes, the words blurring together as his mind raced with possibilities. It started with a polite acknowledgement, and for a moment, the dwindling hope within him flared briefly to life. You've presented some very interesting ideas, John, the email read, but I have some concerns that we need to discuss further before we can move ahead. A familiar knot tightened in his stomach, dislodging the optimism that had begun to take root during his walk. This wasn't a flat-out rejection, but it was not the green light he had longed for either. A surge of frustration bubbled up as he stared at his screen, the fight against disappointment igniting once more. He felt the urge to respond immediately, to clarify, to defend his ideas, but he paused. Instead of impulsively firing back, he took a breath and allowed the gravity of Rick's feedback to settle in. What were the concerns? What did they entail? John knew he had to transform this potential setback into an opportunity for growth. Over the next few hours, John poured himself into understanding Rick's points. As he did, he couldn't help but notice the patterns of questioning that emerged, questions that sought deeper insights into how the initiative would benefit the corporation and its bottom line. There was a tangible mutuality in the inquiry, a siren call for collaboration rather than aggression. Taking a moment away from the screen, he reflected on his original pitch. Had he been too focused on the emotional appeal? Had he neglected the assurances of potential profits and metrics that would resonate in the boardroom? He thought of stages, charts, and the sterile language of business that so often overshadowed the human element. With renewed resolve, he pulled open a new document and began drafting. This time, he aimed to balance the human stories with the hard statistics that would ensure the board understood the viability of his proposal. He meticulously analyzed data, planning to illustrate how investing in initiatives for children like Mia could yield substantial returns. If he could present a comprehensive model that embraced empathy while ensuring fiscal responsibility, perhaps he could shift narratives and unlock the belief in his vision. As the sun dipped below the horizon, John felt the darkness creeping in, but his mind was sharp with focus. The realization glowed in his consciousness. He was learning to navigate the complexities of collaboration. He was unraveling layers of his professional identity, wrestling with the delicate interplay of emotion and pragmatism that a notification pinged again, cutting through the haze of his concentration. It was Jenna, asking about his progress and extending an offer of support. Her inquiry planted a seed of teamwork in his mind. He could strategy test his evolving pitch with her. Confidence surged. Maybe, just maybe, seeking support wouldn't reflect weakness. It would showcase his capability to foster collaboration and enhancement. John fired off a quick reply, inviting her for a late coffee meeting. He sought her perspective on how he could refine his approach further. The choice to reach out shifted something within him. It was as if the specter of isolation that so often haunted him as a professional was exorcised by the power of connection and shared purpose. As he transitioned back into the myriad of numbers and words, clarity settled within him. The notes he had collected morphed into action plans, and he began identifying key areas that needed bolstering before his next presentation. Each bullet point danced in synchronicity with his vision lessons learned branded into the fabric of his journey. Just prior to closing his laptop for the night, John took a moment to appreciate the transformation taking place within him. This was not just about articulating his message, but crafting a narrative that resonated, and he was becoming an architect in that regard. As he prepared for tomorrow's conversation with Jenna, a thought lingered. What if Rick's concerns were not roadblocks, but beacons leading him to a more profound understanding of the work ahead? With a deep breath, he resolved to face whatever questions lay ahead with renewed determination. But as he clicked the laptop shut, his phone vibrated again, a text from Rick, one that simply said, "Let us set a time to discuss your proposal on Thursday." Could this be the moment he had waited for, or yet another layer to unravel in this ongoing pursuit? Thursday arrived with an electrifying atmosphere, charged with anticipation and trepidation as John prepared himself for what could be a defining moment in his career. The sun streamed through the office windows, illuminating the clutter of papers and inspirational quotes he had surrounded himself with. Each page held fragments of his evolution, a journey that had transformed him from a grumpy CEO to someone seeking genuine purpose. As he walked towards the conference room, a whirlwind of thoughts spun in his mind. The chance to discuss Rick's concerns represented not just a professional challenge, but an opportunity for profound personal growth. No longer shackled solely by the pursuit of profit, he understood that real leadership lay in fostering connections and inspiring change. The conference room felt different today. The air was thick with expectation, but John's heart pulsed with determination. When he entered, he found Rick and Sarah already seated, curiosity flickering in their eyes, an encouraging sign he had yearned for. John's confidence surged. This wasn't a battleground, but a shared space for dialogue. "Thank you for meeting with me, John. I read through your follow-up email, and I appreciate the thought you've put into addressing our initial concerns," Rick said, a hint of warmth in his tone. "That's a relief," John replied, his voice steadying as any lingering tension unfurled. "I took your feedback seriously and worked on merging the statistics with the emotional narrative." He slid a revised proposal across the table, the pages freshly inked with data and heart. As he framed his vision in clear and actionable terms, he elaborated on the enhanced projection metrics, the way educational initiatives could bolster the company's image while driving future profits. He felt the weight of doubt peeling away. Rather than facing a wall of resistance, he was interacting with potential partners eager to explore possibilities. Rick leaned forward, acknowledging the effort. "You've provided a much clearer connection between social responsibility and our corporate goals. But I'd like us to delve deeper into how we can measure success. Success isn't just a nice story, it's about outcomes." John nodded, seeing the path illuminated further. Absolutely. We can set tangible targets for participation rates in mentorship programs and internships and measure the long-term impact on both the community and our workforce. I want to create a framework to illustrate not just our intention, but our commitment to learning and growth. The room shifted as he spoke, the executives engaged, asking questions, and pushing back not out of skepticism, but with genuine interest in the practical execution of his vision. Each dialogue sparked new ideas, transforming potential friction into inspiration. What had begun solely as a mission for Mia had expanded into a comprehensive blueprint for change, resonating deeply with all present. After a lively exchange, an affirmation from Sarah came. Your framework addresses not only our concerns, but also potential pitfalls. I see real opportunity here. As the meeting drew to a close, John felt invigorated. This was not merely about presenting ideas. He had embraced vulnerability and allowed his true self to shine through. Each question had challenged him, yet they had led to clarifications that solidified his position and potential as a leader. When Rick finally nodded, offering support for a pilot program to be proposed at the next management meeting, John's heart raced. We'll initiate contact with the local schools next week, he added, a glimmer of pride inflating within him. As he left the conference room, a fresh sense of accomplishment swirled within. He had achieved a tangible milestone, but more importantly, he had embraced his role as a changemaker. Conversations had transformed from fear-laden board meetings into transformational dialogues that united both heart and mind. Reflecting on Mia's innocent question made him realize how far he had come. John was no longer just a name on a corporate letterhead. He had emerged as a mentor, a visionary, and a community leader. The fear of failure that had once loomed large was now replaced by a vivid picture of what he could achieve, an enduring legacy built on connections that mattered. The moment he stepped outside, bathed in the bright glow of a new day, the world felt full of potential. As birds chirped overhead and sunlight kissed his skin, John embraced the horizon ahead with renewed determination. Together with those who had come to trust him, they would nurture a new vision, one where success wasn't just measured in profits, but in the lives they touched. This was just the beginning. And with that thought fueling his stride, John was ready to soar. Now is your moment to reflect on your own journey. Are you ready to step out of your comfort zone and create change in your own life? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. It makes a difference. Don't wait even one more second to share this with those who are ready to transform.